Hello everyone, welcome back to Rex Flippers. Today I'm going to be discussing the Informed Consumers Act. What it is, what does it affect, and what you need to know. And I have a lot of information that I've gathered. There's a lot of people that on the internet have talked about the Informed Consumer Act. And today I'm going to go over this and also at the last thing I'll be doing is I will be actually reading the entire Informed Consumer Act, and I don't know if I know people have picked this apart, picked a little here and there, but I'm actually going to cover the whole thing today, and I'm going to open up right now with a quote from Thomas Reuters. Thomas Reuters says online marketplaces have become a popular choice for online consumer shipping due to their convenience and ease of use, allowing people to shop from the comfort of their own homes. These marketplaces differ from traditional online retailers, making them all the more appealing to creative artists and entrepreneurs who can sell their products without incurring the cost of opening a physical store or building a website from scratch. Online marketplaces provide a platform for small business owners to showcase their products and services to a broader audience. However, there is also a high prosperity for fraud due to lack of strict regulations imposed on sellers, which enable fraudsters to take advantage of unsuspecting consumers. Despite the familiarity of well-known brands like Facebook and Amazon Marketplace, they are not immune to fraud. Fraudsters operating from outside the U.S. can still exploit consumers. To address this issue, the U.S. Congress introduced a bill in 2021 called the Informed Consumers Act, with the primary goal of protecting consumers from fraudsters and counterfeit goods. Online marketplaces such as Etsy and eBay and Mercari must comply with the Informed Consumers Act by June 27, 2023. The bill requires online marketplaces to implement due diligence measurements to ensure their sellers are legitimate businesses and that the product they sell are authentic. Online marketplaces must verify the identity of their sellers by collecting and verifying their tax ID numbers, government issued IDs, and a bank account information. They must also implement protocol to identify and remove counterfeit products from their platform and provide information to consumers about the products they purchase. In addition, information such as the identity of the seller, their name, business address, contact information, and country of origin for the products they purchase must be made readily available to consumers. The Informed Consumers Act will have a significant impact on online marketplaces, resulting in increased costs as they invest in new systems, controls, and processes to meet the requirements of the bill. However, it will also have a positive impact on consumers as they will have more confidence in the product they purchase online and be better protected from potential fraud caused by counterfeit products and nefarious sellers. With the expansive and ever-growing due diligence technology available today, there is no reason why online marketplaces cannot have thorough and efficient due diligence controls in place to mitigate risk fraud and loss for both their customers and the business as a whole. Thomas Reuters Fisk and Fraud Solutions provide the end-to-end solutions for document authentication, person and business verification, to in-depth risk scoring and enhanced due diligence reporting. Online marketplace providers may find the increase most cost challenging, but integrating solid due diligence tools can prevent fraudsters from exploiting suspecting customers and build more confidence in the buyer-seller relationship. This in turn can bring consumers back to online marketplace providers who take the time to ensure the sellers are legitimate. Now, basically, what he's saying is that countries like China that do a lot of knockoffs and counterfeits of different items that are produced in the U.S. Uh, and items that are produced in Japan. You got Nike is out there, Reebok, different large businesses like that the Chinese have infiltrated and are making their own items, which are actually knockoffs and not the original actual item. So that's one of the reasons why they've brought this into place. And here's another message from eBay, which I found this on eBay, but not by going to eBay itself. I punched in Informed Consumers Act into Google Chrome, and it brought up eBay. So I clicked on the eBay icon, and it was a message that is supposedly on at the website where anybody can get to it, and it's from eBay. And here's what their message says: "Is your trust in eBay is at the heart of everything we do, and it's no different with the new Informed Consumers Act. The new law provides a national standard that ensures a safe online buying experience for consumers while protecting the privacy of individual and small business sellers. Your trust is We're grateful to lawmakers who partnered with eBay to align on one federal compliance standard that prevents burdensome information collection requirements. We're committed to ensuring a trusted and safe marketplace for buyers and sellers, and will continue to advocate on your behalf. Here's what you need to know. The Informed Consumer Act aims to create a safe and transparent online buying process and requires marketplaces like eBay to collect, verify, and disclose certain high-volume seller information. A high-volume seller is someone who has sold 200 or more new items totaling more than $5,000 in a 12 consecutive month period over the last 24 months on our U.S. site. If you meet that criteria, we'll need to collect and verify some identification and contact information. High volume sellers will need to keep their information up to date and will ask you to review it annually. If you reach an annual total revenue of $20,000, we're required to include your name or company name and full physical address in purchase confirmation emails and order details. There are some exceptions that allow us to share a partial address with buyers. The exceptions to sharing your physical address for the Informed Consumer Act are: if your address is your residential address, only your state and country will be shown. If you use a different address for product returns, then that return address will be displayed. If you meet the criteria for sharing partial addresses with buyers, you can request an exception. The basics. What is the Informed Consumer Act? The Informed Consumer Act is designed to create a safe and transparent online buying process. This law requires online marketplaces like eBay to collect, verify, and disclose certain information about high-volume sellers to their buyers. Who does this impact? The Informed Consumers Act impacts high-volume sellers who are defined as sellers who have sold 200 or more new items totaling more than $5,000 during a 12 consecutive month period over the last 24 months on U.S. site. What information are you asking for, and where will my buyer see it? If you sold 200 or more new items totaling more than $5,000 in a 12 consecutive month period over the last 24 months on our U.S. site, we'll need to collect and verify your bank account number, your tax identification number, your phone number, email address. If you're a business reseller, we'll also need to collect and verify a copy of your government-issued ID. And once you reach $20,000 in annual eBay revenue, we're required to include your name or company name and full physical address and purchase confirmation emails and order details, but there are some exceptions. What if I don't qualify for an exception? Prior to the Informed Consumers Act becoming effective, you'll be able to certify whether you're eligible for an exception. If we determine you don't qualify for one of these exceptions, or if you're not responding to buyers within a reasonable amount of time, we may need to include your physical address and purchase order confirmation emails and order details. The collection, processing, and sharing of your personal information will continue to be governed by our user privacy notice, including as required by other laws and regulations. If I've already provided the information, do I need to provide it again? No, but you will need to keep your information up to date and will ask you to review everything annually. What do I need to know? The good news is you already provided most of the information when you signed up for eBay. If you sell over 200 new items totaling more than $5,000, we'll send you instructions on how to upload your information in Seller Hub and My eBay if we need additional information from you. We're building an exception process for you to certify that you're eligible for an exception to sharing your full physical address under law. This process will be available prior to the Informed Consumer Act going into effect. What if I don't provide this information? Without this information, we may need to put your payouts or accounts on hold. Once all your information is collected and verified, you'll be ready for your next sale. And when does the Informed Consumer Act go into effect? The Informed Consumer Act is expected to go into effect on June 27th, 2023. We're committed to keeping you informed about the possible impacts on your business. Informing businesses about Informed Consumers Act tags or advertising and marketing, online advertising and marketing basics, small business. Congress passed the Integrity, Notification, and Fairness in Online Retail Marketplaces for Consumer Act, or the Informed Consumers Act, effective as of June 27, 2023. The Federal Trade Commission and the state have authority to enforce the new statute, and online marketplaces that run afoul of the law could be subject to steep financial penalties. Is your business covered by the Informed Consumers Act? If so, you'll want to keep reading. What does the Informed Consumers Act require? Under the new law, online marketplaces, a phrase the statute defines, where high volume third-party sellers, another defined term, offer new or unused consumer products, must collect, verify, and disclose certain information about those sellers. Violations could result in civil penalties of $50,120 per violation for online marketplaces. What is the purpose of the law? When consumers buy products from online marketplaces, the identity of the seller is often unclear. The goal of the Informed Consumers Act is to add more transparency to online transactions and to deter criminals from acquiring stolen, counterfeit, or unsafe items and selling them through those marketplaces. The Act also makes sure online marketplaces users have a way to report suspicious conduct concerning high-volume third-party sellers. How does the law define an online marketplace? You'll want to check the specific word of the statute, but in general, an online marketplace is a person or business that operates a consumer-directed platform that allows third-party sellers to engage in the sale, purchase, payment, storage, shipping, or delivery of consumer products in the United States. The law takes the meaning of consumer product from the Magnuson-Moss Act, which defines the term as tangible personal property for sale and that is normally used for personal, family, or household purposes. The online marketplace also may have a contractual or similar relationship with consumers governing their use of the platform to buy products. Many of the companies that meet the definition of online marketplace are national names, but smaller niche platforms with high volume third-party sellers are covered too. How does the law define high volumes third-party sellers? Again, you will want to check the specific wording of the statute, but in general, a high volume third-party seller is a seller in an online marketplace that in any continuous 12-month period during the past 24 months has had on that platform 200 or more separate sales or transactions of new or unused consumer products and $5,000 or more in gross revenues. In calculating the number of sales or amount of gross revenues for high volume thresholds on given online marketplaces, the only sales that count are ones made through that online marketplace for which payment was processed by the online marketplace, either directly or through the payment process. The law specifically exempts businesses that have made their names, business address, and contact information available to the general public, that have a contractual relationship with marketplace to manufacture, distribute, wholesale, or fulfill shipments of consumer products, and that provide the marketplace with identifying information that the marketplace has verified. The law also exempts from the definition of high volume third-party sellers the online marketplace itself. If a business meets the definition of an online marketplace, what does the Informed Consumers Act require it to do? Here are the general legal requirements for online marketplaces with more specific compliances responsibilities addressed in our questions and answers. Collection. Online marketplace must collect bank information, contact information, and a tax ID number from high volume third-party sellers. Verification. Online marketplaces must verify the information they get from high volume third-party sellers. They also must require sellers to keep their information current and to certify it as accurate at least once a year. Disclosures. For high volume third-party sellers that meet a certain level of sales on a platform, online marketplaces must disclose in the seller's product listings or order confirmations specific information about the seller. Suspension of non-compliant sellers. Online marketplaces must suspend high volume third-party sellers that don't provide information the law requires. Reporting mechanism. Online marketplaces must provide on high volume third-party sellers product listings a clear way for consumers to report suspicious conduct. What kind of information must an online marketplace collect? Timing is important here. Once a person or business meets the definition of a high volume third-party seller, the online marketplace has 10 days to collect the following information from them. Bank account information. The online marketplace must collect the seller's bank account number, or if the seller doesn't have a bank account, the name of the payee for payments the online marketplace issues to the seller. The seller may provide that information either directly to the online marketplace or to a payment processor or other third party designated by the online marketplace, such as PayPal. Tax ID information. The online marketplace must collect a high volume third party seller's business tax identification number, or if the seller doesn't have one, a taxpayer identification number, which is Social Security number. Contact information. If a high volume third party seller is an individual, the online marketplace must get the person's name and a working email address and phone number. For legal entities, corporations, partnerships, etc., that are high volume third party sellers, the online marketplace must collect a working email address and phone number of one of the following forms of ID: a copy of valid government issued identification for an individual acting on behalf of the seller, or a copy of a valid government issued record or tax document that includes the business name and physical address of the seller. What must an online marketplace do to verify the information in it? Once a high volume third party seller provides its banking account, contact, and tax ID information online, marketplaces have 10 days to verify the information. Although the law doesn't lists specific verification steps. The methods the online marketplace chooses must enable it to reliably determine that any information and documents provided are valid, corresponding to the seller or an individual acting on the seller's behalf, not misappropriated, and not falsified. The law also includes a presumption of verification that any information contained in a valid government-issued tax document can be presumed verified as of the date of the document. In addition, online marketplaces must keep information from high-volume third-party sellers current. At least once a year, the marketplace must require the seller to electronically certify that its information hasn't changed or that it has provided the marketplace with updated information. What kind of disclosures must an online marketplace make? If a high-volume third-party seller has annual gross revenues of $20,000 or more on a particular online marketplace, the marketplace must clearly disclose the following information on each of the seller's product listing pages or in order confirmation messages and account transaction histories on the platform. They must provide the seller's full name, which may include the business name or the name the seller uses on the online marketplace, the seller's physical address, and contact information that will allow consumers to have the law calls direct unhindered communication with the seller, including a working phone number, a working email address, or other means of direct electronic messaging that may be provided by the marketplace, as long as the other means doesn't prevent the online marketplace from monitoring communications with consumers for fraud or abuse. If the listings includes a physical address for product returns, that's sufficient under this part of the law. Furthermore, if the seller used a different business to supply the product a consumer bought, the online marketplace must, at consumer's request, provide a name, address, and contact information for that business. The law includes a limited exception for high-volume third-party sellers that operate only out of their homes. In that case, the online marketing place must disclose the country and, if applicable, the state where the seller lives and provide consumers with a phone number, email address, or other means of electronic messaging where consumers can contact the seller. If the seller's only phone number is a personal phone, the online marketplace must provide an email address or other form of electronic messaging where consumers can contact the seller. Online marketplaces may have to suspend the high-volume third-party sellers if they make false statements in an effort to qualify for that limited exception, or if the sellers don't respond to consumers within what the law calls a reasonable time frame. How must online marketplaces respond to sellers' noncompliance? As a preliminary matter, on the product listing page of any high-volume third-party seller, the online marketplace must clearly and conspicuously include both phone number and an electronic way for consumers to contact the marketplace to report suspicious activity. Furthermore, if a high-volume third-party seller doesn't provide to the online marketplace the information the marketplace needs to comply with the law, the marketplace must give the seller written or electronic notice of noncompliance. If the seller doesn't provide the information within 10 days, the marketplace must suspend any further sales activity of the seller until the seller complies with the requirements of the law. Does the Informed Consumers Act require online marketplaces to implement privacy and security safeguards? Yes. To protect the information they're required to collect from unauthorized use, disclosure, access, destruction, or modification, the law requires the online marketplace implement and maintain reasonable security procedures and practices. That including putting administrative, physical, and technical safeguards in place that are appropriate to the nature of the data and the purposes for which the data is used. What's more, data collected solely to comply with the Informed Consumers Act may not be used for any other purpose unless required by law. What are the consequences of violating the Informed Consumer Act? A violation of the law is treated as a violation of an FTC rule. So online marketplaces that don't comply may face FTC law enforcement, which is Federal Trade Commission, that could result in civil penalties of $50,120 per violation. The statute also gives enforcement authority to state attorneys general and other officials authorized by the state. They may file an action in federal court to enjoin further law violation, seek civil penalties and other remedies permitted under state law, and obtain damages, restitution, or other compensation for residents of that state. What should I do if I suspect a violation of the Informed Consumers Act? Report it to the Federal Trade Commission. Follow this dedicated link designed especially for the reporting of possible Informed Consumer Act. They have a dedicated link on eBay. Where can I find out more? Read the Informed Consumer Act, which I'm going to do later, for compliance and enforcement specifications. For more information about the Federal Trade Commissions Act and other statutes and rules enforced by the Federal Trade Commission, visit business.ftc.gov. So that is what eBay has out there in reference to the the Informed Consumers Act. And one thing that Kevin with Commonwealth brought out was I go out and I buy a pair of Nike shoes, and I come home and they don't fit me, and I don't want to take them back to the store. I have a right to be able to sell those Nike shoes on eBay without any repercussions. And Nike comes in and says that shoe is a knockoff or that shoe is a counterfeit, and eBay pulls your listing. That is not the way it should be handled. The same thing can be said. I go out and buy me a brand new Dodge Ram 1500 2023 pickup truck, and I drive the pickup truck for say 6 months, and I decide I want to sell it again. Is Dodge going to come in and tell me that vehicle's counterfeit? I have the same right to sell that pair of shoes as I do to sell that Dodge Ram. And that's where we have problems with the Informed Consumers Act. The Informed Consumers Act was put in to help protect the consumer by monitoring the products coming in from China and watching for the knockoffs and the counterfeit items coming from there. If I have a bona fide item, Nike, it's a Nike product, Nike shouldn't be able to come in and say, hey, I need that item pulled. I have a right to sell that item. All I have to, I can show you where I bought it from or where I acquired it from. It doesn't matter. It's my property. I can sell it. That is one of the problems with the Informed Consumers Act. So right now I'm going to take a break. I'll be coming back in a few minutes, and I'll be reading the Informed Consumers Act, which is Statute 45F, Collection, Verification, and Disclosure of Information by Online Marketplaces to Inform Consumers. So I will be right back in a few minutes. Y'all have take a break, and I'll be back in about 5. Welcome back after that brief brief pause there. Now I'm going to go into reading the Informed Consumers Act. And it is Statute 45F, collection, verification, and disclosure of information by online marketplaces to inform consumers. Clause A, collection and verification of information. Subclause 1, collection. Paragraph A, in general, an online marketplace shall require any high-volume third-party seller on such online marketplace's platform to provide no later than 10 days after qualifying as a high-volume third-party seller on the platform the following information to the online marketplace. Subparagraph I, bank account. Section 1, in general, a bank account number. If such seller does not have a bank account, the name of the payee for payments issued by the online marketplace to such seller. Section 2, provision of information. The bank account or payee information required under subclause 1 may be provided by the seller to the following ways. Subsection 2A, to online marketplace. Subsection 2B, to a payment processor or third party contracted by the online marketplace to maintain such information, provided that the online marketplace ensures that it can obtain such information within 3 business days, such payment processor or the other third party. Contact information. Contact information for such sellers as follows. Section 1, with respect to a high volume third party seller that is an individual, the individual's name. Section 2, with respect to a high volume third party seller that is not an individual, one of the following forms of contact information. Subsection 2A, a copy of a valid government issued identification for an individual acting on behalf of such seller that includes the individual's name. Subsection B, a copy of a valid government issued record or tax document that includes the business name and physical address of such seller. Section 3, tax ID, a business tax identification number, or if such seller does not have a business tax identification number, a taxpayer identification number. And Section 4, working email and phone number, a current working email address and phone number for such seller. Paragraph B, notification of change, annual certification. An online marketplace shall, subsection 1, periodically, but not less than annually, notify any high-volume third-party seller on such online marketplaces platforms of the requirement to keep any information collected under subparagraph A current, and subsection 2, required any high-volume third-party seller on such online marketplaces platform to, not later than 10 days after receiving the notice under clause 1, electronically certify that 1. The seller has provided any changes to such information to the online marketplace, if any such changes have occurred, or 2. There have been no changes to such seller's information. Section C, suspension. In the event that a high-volume third-party seller does not provide the information or certification required under this paragraph, the online marketplace shall, after providing the seller with written or electronic notice and an opportunity to provide such information or certification not later than 10 days after the issuance of such notice, suspend any future sales activity of such seller until such seller provides such information and certification. Section 2, verification. A, in general, an online marketplace shall, subsection 1, verify the information collected under paragraph 1A not later than 10 days after such collection, and subsection 2, verify any change to such information not later than 10 days after being notified of such change by a high-volume third-party seller under paragraph 1B. Section B, presumption of verification. In the case of a high-volume third-party seller that provides a copy of a valid government-issued tax document, any information contained in such document shall be presumed to be verified as of the date of issuance of such document. Subsection 3, data use limitations. Data collected solely to comply with requirements of this section may not be used for any other purpose unless required by law. And subsection 4, data security requirement. An online marketplace shall implement and maintain reasonable security procedures and practices, including administrative, physical, and technical safeguards appropriate to the nature of the data and the purpose for which the data will be used, to protect that the data collected to comply with the requirements of this section from unauthorized use, disclosure, access, destruction, or modification. B. Disclosure required. 1. Requirement. A. In general, an online marketplace shall, subsection 1, require any high-volume third-party seller with an aggregate total of $20,000 or more in annual gross revenues on such online marketplaces, and that uses such online marketplaces platforms to provide the information described in subparagraph B to the online marketplace, and subsection 2, disclose the information described in subparagraph B to consumers in a clear and conspicuous manner. 1. On the product listing page, including via hyperlink, or 2. In the order confirmation message or other documents or communication made to the consumer after the purchase is finalized, and in the consumer's account transaction history. Paragraph B, the information described. The information described in this subparagraph is the following. Subsection 1. Subject to paragraph 2, the identity of the high-volume third-party seller, including 1. The full name of the seller, which may include the seller's name or seller's company name, or the name by which the seller or company operates on the online marketplace. 2. The physical address of the seller. And 3. Contact information for the seller to allow for the direct, unhindered communication with high-volume third-party sellers by users of the online marketplace, including subsection A, a current working phone number, subsection B, a current working email address, or subsection C, other means of direct electronic messaging which may be provided to such sellers by the online marketplace, provided that the requirements of this item shall not prevent an online marketplace from monitoring communications between high-volume third-party sellers and users of the online marketplace for fraud, abuse, or spam. And section 2, whether the high-volume third-party seller uses a different seller to supply the consumer product to the consumer upon purchase and upon the request of an authenticated purchaser, the information described in clause 1 relating to any such seller that supplied the consumer product to the purchaser, if such seller is different than the high-volume third-party seller listed on the product listing prior to purchase. 2. Exception. A. In general, subject to subparagraph B, upon the request of a high-volume third-party seller, an online marketplace may provide for partial disclosure of the identity information required under paragraph 1B1 in the following situations. 1. If such seller certifies to the online marketplace that the seller does not have a business address and only has a residential street address, or has a combined business and residential address, The online marketplace may 1. Disclose only the country and, if applicable, the state in which such seller resides, and 2. Inform consumers that there is no business address available for the seller and that consumer inquiries should be submitted to the seller by phone, email, or other means of electronic messaging provided to such seller by the online marketplace. Section 2, if such seller certifies to the online marketplace that the seller is a business that has a physical address for product returns, the online marketplace may disclose the seller's physical address for product returns. Section 3, if such seller certifies to the online marketplace that the seller does not have a phone number other than a personal phone number, the online marketplace shall inform consumers that there is no phone number available for the seller and that consumer inquiries should be submitted to the seller email address or other means of electronic messaging provided to such seller by the online marketplace. Paragraph B, limitations on exceptions. If an online marketplace becomes aware that a high-volume third-party seller has made a false representation to the online marketplace in order to justify the provisions of a partial disclosure under subparagraph A, or that a high-volume third-party seller who has requested and received a provision for a partial disclosure under subparagraph A has not provided responsive answers within a reasonable time frame to consumer inquiries submitted to the seller by phone, email, or other means of electronic messaging provided to such sellers by the online marketplace, the online marketplace shall, after providing the seller with written or electronic notice and an opportunity to respond not later than 10 days after the issuance of such notice, suspend any future sales activities of such seller unless such seller consents to the disclosure of the identity information required under paragraph 1B1. Section 3, reporting mechanism. An online marketplace shall disclose to consumers in a clear and conspicuous manner on the product listings of any high-volume third-party seller a reporting mechanism that allows for electronic and telephonic reporting of suspicious marketplace activity to the online marketplace. And 4, compliance. If a high-volume third-party seller does not comply with the requirements to provide and disclose information under this subsection, the online marketplace shall, after providing the seller with written or electronic notice and an opportunity to provide or disclose such information not later than 10 days after the issuance of such notice, suspend any future sales activity of such seller until the seller complies with such requirements. C. Enforcement by Federal Trade Commission. 1. Unfair and deceptive acts or practices. A violation of subsection A or B by an online marketplace shall be treated as a violation of a rule defining an unfair or deceptive act or practice prescribed under section 18A1B of the Federal Trade Commission Act. 2. Powers of Commission. A. In general, the Commission shall enforce subsections A and B in the same manner, by the same means, and with the same jurisdiction, powers, and duties as though all applicable terms and provisions of the Federal Trade Commission Act were incorporated into and made part of this section. B. Privileges and immunities. Any person that violates subsection A or B shall be subject to the penalties and entitled to the privileges and immunities provided in the Federal Trade Commission Act. Regulations. 3. Regulations. The Commission may promulgate regulations under Section 553 of Title V with respect to the collection, verification, and disclosure of information under this section, provided that such regulations are limited to what is necessary to collect, verify, and disclose such information. Authority preserved. Nothing in this section shall be construed to limit the authority under any other provisions of law. Section D. Enforcement by state attorneys general. 1. In general, if the Attorney General of a state has reason to believe that any online marketplace has violated or is violating this section, or a regulation promulgated under this section that affects one or more residents of that state, the Attorney General of the state may bring a civil action in any appropriate district court of the United States to A. enjoin further such violations by the defendant, B. enforce compliance with this section or such regulations, C. obtain civil penalties in the amount provided for under subsection C, D. obtain other remedies permitted under state law, and E. obtain damages, restitution, or other compensation on behalf of residents of the state. 2. Notice. The Attorney General of the state shall provide prior written notice of any action under paragraph 1 to the Commission and provide the Commission with a copy of the complaint in the action, except in any case in which such prior notice is not feasible, in which case the Attorney General shall serve such notice immediately upon instituting such acts. 3. Intervention by the Commission. Upon receiving notice under paragraph 2, the Commission shall have the right, A. to intervene in the action, B. upon so intervening, to be heard on all matters arising therein, and C. to file petitions for appeal. 4. Limitations on state actions while federal action is pending. If the Commission has instituted a civil action for violation of this section or a regulation promulgated under this section, no state attorney general or official of agency of a state may bring a separate action under paragraph 1 during the pendency of that action against any defendant named in the complaint of the Commission for any violation of this section or a regulation promulgated under the section that is alleged in the complaint. A state attorney general or official or agency of a state may join a civil action for a violation of this section or regulation promulgated under the section filed by the Commission. 5. Rule of construction. For purpose of the beginning of a civil action under paragraph 1, nothing in this section shall be construed to prevent the Chief Law Enforcement Officer or official or agency of a state from exercising the power conferred on such Chief Law Enforcement Officer or official or agency of state by the laws of the state to conduct investigations, administer oaths of affirmation, or compel the attendance of witnesses, the production of documentary and other evidence. Section 6. Actions by other state officials. A. In general, in addition to civil actions brought by Attorney General under paragraph 1, any other officer of a state who is authorized by the state to do so, except for any private person on behalf of the state Attorney General, may bring a civil action under paragraph 1, subject to the same requirements and limitations that apply under this subsection to a civil action brought by Attorney General. B. Savings provision. Nothing in this subsection may be construed to prohibit an authorized official of a state from initiating or continuing any proceeding in a court of the state for a violation of any civil or criminal law of the state. Severability. If any provision of this section or the application thereof to any person or circumstances is held invalid, the remainder of this section and the application of such provisions to the other persons not similarly situated or to other circumstances shall not be affected by the invalidation. Section F. Definitions. In this section, commission means the term commission means the Federal Trade Commission. Consumer product. The term consumer product has the meaning given such term in section 2301 of this title and section 700.1 of Title 16 Code of Federal Regulations. 3. High volume third-party seller. A. In general, the term high volume third-party seller means a participant on an online marketplace platform who is a third-party seller and in any continuous 12-month period during the previous 24 months has entered into 200 or more discrete sales or transactions of new or unused consumer products and an aggregate total of $5,000 or more in gross revenue. B. Clarification. For purpose of calculating the number of discrete sales or transactions or the aggregate gross revenues under paragraph A, an online marketplace shall only be required to count sales or transactions made through the online marketplace and for which payment was processed by the online marketplace, either directly or through its payment processor. Online marketplace. The term online marketplace means any person or entity that operates a consumer-directed, electronically based or access platform that A, includes features that allow for, facilitate, or enable third-party sellers to engage in the sale, purchase, payment, storage, shipping, or delivery of a consumer product in the United States. B, is used by one or more third-party sellers for such purposes. And C, has a contractual or similar relationship with consumers governing their use of the platform to purchase consumer products. 5. Seller. The term seller means a person who sells, offers to sell, or contracts to sell a consumer product through an online marketplace platform. 6. Third-party seller. A. In general, the term third-party seller means any seller independent of an online marketplace who sells, offers to sell, or contracts to sell a consumer product in the United States through such online marketplaces platform. B. Exclusions. The term third-party seller does not include, with respect to an online marketplace, 1. A seller who operates the online marketplaces platform, or 2. A business entity that has, 1. Made available to the general public the entity's name, business address, and working contact information. 2. An ongoing contractual relationship with the online marketplace to provide the online marketplace with the manufacture, distribution, wholesaling, or fulfillment of shipments of consumer products. And 3. Provided to the online marketplace identifying information as described in subsection A that has been verified in accordance with that subsection. 7. Verify. The term verify means to confirm information provided to an online marketplace pursuant to this section, which may include the use of one or more methods that enable the online marketplace to reliably determine that any information and documents provided are valid, corresponding to the seller or an individual acting on the seller's behalf, not misappropriated and not falsified. G. Relationships to state law. No state or political subdivision of the state or territory of the United States may establish or continue in effect any law, regulation, rule, requirement, or standard that conflicts with the requirements of this section. And H, the effective date. The section shall take effect 180 days after December 29th, 2022, and that date is June 27th of 2023 is when this went into effect. So as you can see, the Informed Consumers Act covers quite a bit of information, and there are still questions in there as to what the actual like third-party seller, third-party seller. The term third-party seller means any seller independent of an online marketplace who sells, offers to sell, or contracts. But then there's one thing I got a question about in here, and this is it here in general. A high-volume third-party seller means a participant of an online marketplace platform who is a third-party seller and in any continuous 12-month period during the previous 24 months has entered into 200 or more discrete sales or transactions of new. Okay, that's new, not used. Transactions of new items or unused. It doesn't say used, it says new or unused consumer products, and an aggregate total of $5,000 or more in gross revenue. So the way I'm looking at that is if I get items directly from a consumer, directly from a manufacturer, let's say Nike. I contract with Nike to sell shoes for them. Okay, and that would be new, and that would fall under this heading of high volume third party sellers of transactions of new or unused consumer products. But say I went to a thrift store and I bought several pairs of Nike shoes that were used. Do those fall under this category? I look at it as no, they don't. They are my property. I purchased them, and I can sell them if I want to. And as I mentioned earlier, that's the same as going out and buying a car. I go out and buy me a brand new Dodge Ram pickup truck, and then I decide to sell it. Well, is Dodge going to come in and say I can't sell that? Well, Nike shouldn't be able to do the same thing. There's a lot of questions still that need to be answered on this. And I was watching on TV the other day. They're still trying to do some reform on it and make it easier for people to understand it. If you have any questions, put comments down below. I'll be glad to entertain any questions. I'll try to take any comments, good or bad. It doesn't matter. And I hope that I've taught some people some things that they didn't know, and hope that I've cleared up some items that people weren't aware of. So I'd like to, again, ask everybody to please subscribe to my channel. It's Rex Flippers. I've also got a channel called We the People. And We the People, I do American history. And I was doing live, but now I'm not doing live anymore because I wasn't getting as many viewers on there. In fact, I didn't get any viewers on there when I was doing it live. So, without further ado, after a long, lengthy video here, I'd like to say y'all have a good day. From my family to yours, and God bless America.